unfold.
For all of human history, there's been one thing we could all count on: death. It's been our one shared, unavoidable fate. But what if all of that is wrong? What if we've been thinking about the end of life completely backwards?
Okay, let's really get into this. Because that question, it's not science fiction anymore. Pioneers like the geneticist David Sinclair are totally reframing aging. They don't see it as our destiny. They see it as an engineering challenge. Like a bug in our biological code that can be debugged, patched, and maybe, just maybe, even deleted for good.
And this whole idea puts us at a massive fork in the road, with two radically different futures ahead of us. One path leads to a future of just pure scientific awe, where we could conquer disease and unlock a kind of human potential we can barely even imagine. The other path, though, that's a dystopian warning. A world totally fractured by biological haves and have-nots, stuck in a sterile, joyless quest for perfect preservation. In this explainer, we're going to crack open the code and look at both sides.
Now, if you want to defeat an enemy, you have to understand it first, right? So how does aging actually work? Well, it's not one single thing. It's more like a systemic collapse. And scientists have actually mapped out the core drivers of this whole process. They call them the hallmarks of aging. And you can think of these 12 things as the master switches for decay. Now, for something to be a hallmark, it has to actually cause aging. And here's the crucial part. If you can slow it down or even reverse it, you can slow down or reverse aging itself. These are the bullseyes. These are the targets.
So first up, the very foundation of our biology just starts to crack. It's like this. Our DNA, our fundamental blueprint, starts getting typos and errors. Then, the protective caps on our chromosomes, these things called telomeres, they start to wear down, kind of like the little plastic tips on your shoelaces fraying over time. And finally, the instructions telling our genes what to do and when, the epigenome, it all just gets scrambled and confused.
Next, our internal quality control systems start to go offline. Imagine a factory where the machines suddenly start making faulty parts. That's basically our proteins misfolding and clumping up. Then the waste recycling program shuts down, so junk just piles up everywhere. And our cellular power plants, the mitochondria, they start sputtering, putting out more toxic pollution than actual energy. It's a mess.
And this is where the damage really goes systemic. We get a buildup of these, well, they're called zombie cells. They're damaged cells that refuse to die, and instead, they just hang around secreting toxins that poison all the healthy cells around them. Our supply of spare parts, our stem cells, starts to run out, and the whole communication network in our body just gets overwhelmed with static and noise.
So we've got genomic instability, scrambled instructions, failing systems, zombies. A complete architecture of decay. It sounds hopelessly complex, right? Almost impossible to fix. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if the key isn't the damage itself, but the information that's been lost along the way? This is where we pivot to that scientific awe side of things, with a revolutionary new idea called the information theory of aging. And it suggests this whole thing might actually be reversible.
And this is where the paradigm really shifts. The metaphor that Dr. Sinclair uses here is just incredible. He says our core genetic code, our DNA, that's like the music on a CD. The music itself is still perfectly fine, totally intact. Aging? Well, aging is just the scratches on the surface of the disc, the epigenetic noise, that's stopping the cell from reading the music correctly. The implication here is absolutely staggering. We don't need a new CD, we just need to figure out how to polish it.
Okay, so how in the world do you polish a cell? Well, you use something called Yamanaka factors. These are special proteins that can essentially wipe the epigenetic slate clean. But the real breakthrough is something called partial reprogramming. See, you use these factors for just long enough to get rid of the scratches of age, but not so long that you completely erase the cell's identity. It's literally like rebooting your cellular software back to its original factory settings. And listen, this isn't just some theory. Tech billionaires have poured an initial $3 billion into a single company, Altos Labs, just to make this a reality. They're betting big that they can actually turn back the clock. But, and this is a huge but, the risks are equally massive. Think about it. A buggy software update in the human body could lead to absolutely catastrophic consequences, like cancer. This massive investment isn't just happening in labs either. It's fueling a whole new gold rush for longevity. And this brings us right to the other side of the coin, the dystopian warning. We're starting to see this growing trend of biohackers and radical self-experimenters going to extreme and, frankly, sometimes bizarre lengths to get a jump on immortality. And they're pushing the ethical boundaries of science while they're at it. And Exhibit A in this brave new world has to be the tech entrepreneur Brian Johnson. This guy has turned his entire life over to an algorithm. He takes over 100 pills a day as part of something he calls Project Blueprint, all in an effort to reverse his biological age. He is the ultimate quantified self. His daily regimen is this insanely calibrated cocktail designed to optimize every single biological marker he can measure. He's taking drugs that mimic fasting, compounds that fuel DNA repair, the whole shebang. It's all tuned to this constant stream of his own medical data. Now, that's an incredible amount of discipline, for sure, but you also have to say it's a life of almost sterile precision. And here's the crucial point. This kind of approach can reduce the most profound human experiences down to just another data point. For example, in his protocol, sexual function has nothing to do with intimacy or pleasure. It's just another biomarker of vascular health that needs to be measured and optimized. It really makes you ask the question, what do we lose when life itself just becomes an algorithm? This quest has even led to a bizarre modern form of vampirism. Some early research led to a whole marketplace for young plasma, with people paying thousands of dollars for transfusions from teenagers. But as it turns out, newer science suggests the real benefit isn't from adding youth factors, but from just diluting all the pro-aging junk that's already in old blood. It's a process called TPE. It's way less gothic, but the results could be just as profound. So here we are. We've got the science to debug our own code, and we've got people willing to take the most extreme measures to do it. This brings us to a fundamental philosophical crossroads. We are facing a choice of truly mythical proportions. And you can see this in the huge philosophical divide among some of the world's top thinkers. On one side, you have people like Francis Fukuyama, who worry that this will completely shatter human equality and create a biological caste system. Then you have Yuval Noah Harari, who warns we'll become immortals, so terrified of accidental death that we stop truly living. And on the other side of the aisle, you have proponents like Peter Thiel, who basically argues that accepting death is a moral failure. To him, death is simply a disease that we have a moral obligation to cure. And please, don't think this is a debate for some far-off future. The futurist Ray Kurzweil predicts we could hit what he calls longevity escape velocity as early as 2029. Now that is the point where science starts adding more than 1 year to your life for every year you're alive. Let that sink in. At that point, for anyone who can access the technology, death by aging effectively becomes optional. So the conclusion is pretty clear. We've done it. We've cracked the code. Just like the mythical titan Prometheus, we have stolen the secret to godlike power. In this case, the fire of eternal youth. And that leaves us with the ultimate question. This fire that we now hold, it could warm us. It could free us from the suffering of old age and kick off a golden era for humanity. Or it could burn down the very foundations of equality and meaning that we all cherish. The science is here, the technology is coming, but are you ready for the choice?